Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 19th audio chat on the Q News Patriot Rumble channel series. I am the Q News Patriot. My name is SG Anon. I'm coming to you all again with a guest that actually had quite a positive response in our first conversation, Dr. Vivislav Simic, or Sima, a man who is geopolitically well aware, quite the patriot from the Serbian countryside in South Central and Southeastern Europe. And we're here to talk a little bit today about some of the historical lens that has that has set up, pardon me, and contributed to the events in Eastern Europe that we're currently seeing unfolding, and also to get a little bit of perspective about how we achieve a transformation in our societies, primarily through our youth and through our awareness of our geopolitical institutions, both domestically and internationally, and how they work together, and how we can utilize the coming generation's vitality and vigor and mental acuity to really fashion a world based in patriotism, and that liberates to a great degree, I think, many of us from this deep state mafia that has taken control in so many of our governments. So without further ado, Sima, thank you very much for coming back to the show.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very, very honored and very happy to be here.
Well, I'm honored to have you back because the last time that we had a discussion on air, it was a wonderful discussion that encapsulated a lot of history behind the Serbian people, behind why the deep state mafia around the world, in particular the European central banking NATO system, has had such an issue with the independent free spirit of the Serbian people for a very long time. We got a good education, I think, in some of the background geopolitically that contributes to the general flavor, the general attitude towards the West that is present in Eastern Europe. But today, I thought we would take it a little step further as we're seeing things expand in this European theater, as we're seeing, essentially what amounts to an escalation again of the Ukraine war. Everyone's talking about this conflict in the Middle East, which of course deserves some attention, but no one's really talking anymore right now about the conflict that is continuing, quite frankly, on your all's doorstep over in the Serbian countryside. And so I thought we could start there a little bit and have you explain how you feel like the conflict currently going on is going to affect Serbia, and then we could move into a discussion about how we empower ourselves with knowledge as we the people, especially from that the younger academic mental level, to prevent these things from ever occurring in our societies ever again.
Thank you very, very much. These are great topics, and I would like to bring to or center our attention on the fact that this war that everybody's talking about, the Third World War, the current war that manifests itself in many different places in the world, actually started in what used to be Yugoslavia, and especially concretely, specifically with the attack regarding Kosovo on Serbia in 1999. So we've been at war for 24 years now, because it started in March, late March 1999, when NATO, which broke all international law, its own charter, all the laws and constitutions of member countries, and disrupted the post-World War II American order, started in the Balkans, in Serbia, and it has been forgotten. If anybody wants my book, if you can post my email or make some contact, I will be glad to share my book on Kosovo, the title is Kosovo, Ground Zero of the Neocon World Order and Neoliberal License to Pillage, which discusses these events from the legal point of view, about the violations, numerous, incredible amount of violations that happened in terms of legality, and also the pillage of Serbia and the Balkans and in Eastern Europe, including Ukraine. So this is welcome to ask for it, and I will gladly share. But we kind of tended to forget it because it's the idol of the New World Order, of the neoliberal mindset, which is the Clintons, Hillary and Bill, or Billary, because they were the officially responsible people for the war. Ever since nobody reacted to violations and the pillaging and everything, they have encouraged later all American administrations to continue to do this in other parts of the world. Because of geopolitical and religious issues, we concentrate on the Muslim countries, but we have to remember that an Orthodox European nation, Serbia and Serbs, were the first ones to suffer from it. And now it kind of made the full circle because after all of these Muslim Arab nations mostly, and in Afghanistan there are Arabs, obviously there are Farsis and other nations, it came back to the Slavic world with the war or a special military operation in Western Russia. Again, I shock people when I say it's not in Ukraine, but in Western Russia, because if we follow international law and accept that certain procedures and certain, facts are true, the war or the hostilities are taking place on the territory of Western Russia, not in Ukraine anymore. But whoever wants to see it differently, it's, we cannot command people to think differently, even though that is the tendency to actually issue commands, and we follow in our thoughts, in our feelings, and in our deeds. And it has been working quite well, specifically because of the issue that you mentioned, conditioning and preparing the youth to be part of this new world, of this new order that they're creating in front of our eyes. And the solution is directly to the answer, is to have brave, competent professors in the academia who will confront this, because the other side, the evil side, if you want to look at it that way, was brave, organized, and very competent in brainwashing, conditioning young generations, millions and billions of people over the years, to actually accept the new reality, the construct that they have created, and to behave, to think, to act, and to feel in this way. Our side really has not done anything. We are a bunch of cowards, disorganized, vain, helpless people, actually, who surrendered before a fight and who allow everybody to walk over us. There are very few people I know, I hope, I believe that I'm one of those who are fighting actively and who is not giving up in spite of all the problems, in spite of all the difficulties, losing jobs, being pushed aside, ridiculed, never being able to be in the media. For example, in Serbia, I can never be on any official media whatsoever. And they bring all sorts of dilettantes and incompetent people and present them as experts and people who have achieved in their life. They're obedient, they're propaganda, and they are on TV, on the radio, and I'm only on, for example, independent YouTube channels or a media like this in terms of English and global audience. So it's our fault. It's the fault of people who are opposing this, who don't want this new order, but we have to do something. We have to be as organized and as competent in fighting this as the other side is. We need our Soros. We need our fund for a free society, not for open society, like Soros does. We need our billionaires who will finance our think tanks, who will finance our universities, who will organize media, who will be competent and stable, where people can get good jobs and lead a normal life, and professors who will have good salaries, and students who will be sent by their families, who belong to normal middle-class people who will be proud of having their kids in those schools. We have left the youth, young people, these innocent souls, these tabulas rasas, these empty boards on which we did not inscribe a message of any kind, except for whining. And I will come to this in terms of Serbia. This is what all we have. This is our intelligentsia, just whiners, the eunuchs, the castrati, people who have been castrated mentally and physically, probably in a sense, who are cowards, who just like to sit in the corner and enjoy some kind of revenue, doing nothing, actually giving up, surrendering before a fight, and allowing the other side to win. So we are responsible. I'm not talking about parents or grandparents like who try to transmit this message, but lots of people I know who come from Serbia, from Arab countries, from Muslim countries, from other countries in the world where these traditions are very strong, very long, they complain that either their kids or their grandkids in some cases are lost because they grew up in America. They have been taught from elementary school, from kindergarten, especially at the university level, all of these crazy things, let's put it that way, that do not compute with any of the traditions, regardless whether you are Muslim, Christian, whether you are from Asia or from Eastern Europe or from North Africa. None of us believe that these things are normal. None of us believe these things are innocent. We believe that these things are deadly, detrimental, civilizationally wrong, suicidal, and yet we, let's not even include me. There are many, many, many smarter people, greater people in terms of knowledge and wisdom, but our people have not done anything. Our entrepreneurs, our people with money have not invested 1 cent into a university of this kind, except I'm not talking about extremist religious colleges like in the United States where they teach Christianity or Judaism or Islam of some kind. I'm talking about liberal, open-minded, enlightened education, but not this stuff that we see in the world today, especially at universities in the United States and Western Europe. So it is our fault. We have left the youth abandoned. We are like ancient Greeks who do not want, when they didn't want a kid, the father would refuse to pick him up or her up in his arms and show it to the world and the family, recognizing that child. And then the slaves would take that child and expose it outside of the city walls and leave it abandoned for wild animals or horrible death from thirst or freezing, like whatever, or to be picked up by some stranger who will then bring up that kid as his own and form it, construct another creature, and cause all of these conditions that are the basis for these Greek tragedies, like the Oedipus Rex and all of these others. So these abandoned kids, I'm now speaking figuratively, obviously, are now the material for somebody else to pick them up because we abandoned them. We exposed them, and the only thing they know are those who took them, even if they mean them harm, if they don't love them as we should, and we are responsible for them, they are forming them into adults who then behave and feel and act and think in the way that this other side has decided what is the right way for them. And the kids don't know. They're innocent. They are not, even when they feel that something is wrong, they don't have any intellectual, theoretical basis to fall upon solid ground and say, no, this is wrong. The only story they have is the other side's story. We are on the fringes. There are a few of us. We haven't done our job. We are the ones who are responsible.
I enjoy the perspective of personal accountability on this program because it ties back to a spiritual truth. And that spiritual truth is, whether we mean to or not, we often give our consent to this system, this Luciferian deep state mafia of control all around the world, to vex our lives in many ways, not only through our children, but through our paychecks, through our workplaces, through our very legal structures, right? In the case of the United States government right now, for example, appearing to many people here in the country, well over 80 to 100 million individuals, believe that the current government is entirely illegitimate. and yet it continues to plug along in the fashion that it does. And so, by virtue of our inaction, it is actually a form of consent in some regards to being ruled or influenced or manipulated in some form that would not normally be blendable, if you will, would not normally agree with this idea of personal sovereignty. And personal sovereignty and international sovereignty, and how these two are sort of connected at the human existence, the state of being level, is one of the topics that is on, really the buzz lips of the world right now. Is what does it mean to be a sovereign being, and what does it mean to be a sovereign nation, and what does it mean to be self-directing and self-determining, right? And so this is one of the things I think that we could highlight, that the youth right now, I think most of the youth right now couldn't define the term self-determination, much less understand the implications for it from a generational sense, from the preservation of we the people, right? And so our hope is in the children. Even Adolf Hitler understood that if you had the minds of the children, you could control the destiny of the nation. And that's exactly what we have playing out, I think, in real time. Excuse me, not only in Serbia and the European countries, although certainly there, but in a fashion that is very, very loud right now to the American population as well, as they've witnessed this, inversion of anything that is good and right, primarily coming from the pulpit of weaponized political academia. So let me ask you, as we have this discussion and we're laying this backdrop of context for the understanding of the world, the understanding of what Russia is doing with really what amounts to an internal policing action, and individuals out there can go out and look, for these terminologies and understand why that's actually a thing. And the same sort of things that's occurring in Israel with the incorporation of that state on the 23rd of February of this year, and the dissolution of a 76-year-old contract, right? These are primarily business arrangements that have been hidden behind the veil of governmental levers. So how do we encapsulate to the best extent the truth here about what occurred with infiltration into our governments, and pass that along in a digestible way to our youth, where they can be proud of who they are, they can be proud of what their forebears before them endured and built for them, and they can seek, and where they will actually seek to genuinely protect, serve, and defend, and encourage the growth of that society, or that people or culture group that they're a part of.
Excellent. I want to start answering that by actually reminding people of a great hero of today, Gonzalo Lira. I hope you heard of him and his disappearance, and nobody has done anything to pressure the government of any kind to find him, help him, bring him back to life, to find out if he's dead or alive or anything. He is the Chilean citizen and US citizen who was in Ukraine when everything started, and he has been reporting and was targeted a few times. And a few months ago, he basically was taken by the so-called Ukrainian secret police or state defenders or whatever, and we never heard of him. And everybody abandoned him. This is what I'm saying and what I'm talking about. We abandon even those who fight for us, even those who are on the front lines, who are in the first line of fire. He was right there and bravely informed the rest of the world about the events. And when he was gone, nobody is mentioning him. None of these big names, nobody in the West, in the so-called free world, is worried about the disappearance of a great man. The same thing with Assange, the same thing with many others. I don't remember now some of the ladies who were fighting when they exposed these things within the government. And we are responsible for these things. I try in every interview, I try to mention his name. The last time when we had our talk, he was still alive and available to post videos and chats and stuff. But very soon after that, he disappeared, and we talked, I think it was in August. So it's been months, and nobody started a movement. Nobody started a petition. Nobody started protesting. Nobody who has any weight in terms of publicity and public stature to actually keep saying, where is Gonzalo Lira? Is he alive? Because tomorrow it can be you and me. And then we know nobody will move a finger. they might watch this video and say, oh God, it's, they were so good, but nobody cares what happens to them. Are we able to feed our families? Are we able to afford healthcare? Are we able to stay free, even poor? So this is another responsibility. And this is something that my friends are starting to understand. My American friends or my Western friends, when years back they would say, oh my God, don't start again with that, just like in former Yugoslavia. Well, now it's obvious even to them that everything is just like in former Soviet Union or Yugoslavia, where you had no power and you're helpless and things are happening to you. You are the passive recipient of these events of torture, of humiliation, of impoverishment, of becoming a nobody, and you cannot do anything. It's not true. We can do a lot. Just a few words, just two simple sounds, no, or three in English, no. In many languages, like in Spanish, it's no, N-O, and it stops. When you refuse to cooperate, okay, they can kill you, they can do things to you, they can bomb you, like now they're doing in Gaza, and but these kids, these parents, they said, no, not moving. We are staying in our land, even if we die. And that's a powerful message, because they are, through their disobedience, not executing the command that they were given. They are destroying that system. We have to start doing that. And you can probably see the painting behind me. This is an old bridge that my family and some others built way back about 120 some years ago over the Morava River in central Serbia. And this is the bridge that NATO bombed. It was of no military significance, far away from the front. It was a pedestrian bridge because it was so old and nobody repaired it for decades under communism. And NATO actually bombed it just for fun and killed 3 people there. 3 innocent civilians who just wanted to cross from one side to the other and happened to be there when they were just, I guess, experimenting with their weapons. Nobody ever suffered any consequences of those who issued the command and who executed it. But families were left with their mothers, with their fathers, with their sisters, brothers, whoever. And also it's a big scar because all of us from that area of Serbia, usually it's a very romantic part of the river with beautiful moonlight and everything. And most people had their first kiss on the bridge under those arches. And some beast decided to blow it up and to destroy it. It blocked the river. It caused flooding. It was one thing after another. And nobody did anything, not even the government of Serbia. They kind of forgot it. But we have that emotional scar and that feeling, deep feeling of injustice, that something must be done. And we keep reminding ourselves and each other and the world about this. This is just a simple example of one little town in Serbia, of a totally insignificant bridge in global terms. But it shows that these kids in Gaza, these kids in Donbass, for 8 years, the Kiev Nazis bombed kindergartens, hospitals. Nobody said a word. The same Muslim leaders who now condemn the government of Israel for killing, bombing hospitals and everything else, now they raise their voice, but for 8 years, they didn't say a word about Russian kids being killed. In the West, they were crying over Ukrainian kids who they claimed Russia killed. But now they don't say a word about the kids in Gaza, or ever said anything about Russian kids being killed. So it means that we have to do something urgently. Otherwise, we are now witnessing the moment in global history, in world history, it has never been like this, where we are defining that legally, emotionally, politically, socially, it is acceptable to to establish the truth that George Orwell wrote in Animal Farm, if you remember that book. If you haven't read it, please read it, because in one point it says the rules of the new world where animals are in charge. Rule number one, all animals are equal. Sounds beautiful. But then rule number two says some animals are more equal than others. And we can see that some kids at a specific moment, because of specific interests, are worth mentioning and crying over and demanding their safety, and some others are not. And tomorrow, it may be American kids, Canadian kids, German kids, French kids, who will be carpet bombed, or who will be killed in a school if some Palestinian or some other Muslim who is very, very upset about what is going on walks into a French school and kills in the most horrible, brutal way 20, 30, 40 French kids, because he believes that that's the only thing he can do. We must not allow our world to descend into that kind of behavior, into that kind of legality, because it is becoming legal. It is becoming, and we know that, especially in America, you know what the system of precedent means. If we allow this to go this way, that Russian kids are worthless, that Serbian kids are worthless. Nobody even bothered to cry over Serbian kids, but Serbs went out to demonstrate, to ask and demand that the bombing of kids in Gaza, even though they're Muslims and Arabs, that it must be stopped, because they are kids. There is a difference between killing children and bombing hospitals and military action. If we do not do that, this world is doomed, because whoever has a bigger stick will make your kids worthless. And I think America is not the one with the biggest stick anymore. Even if there is a big stick, there is no power, there is no arm to lift it. And then there is the opposing stick that will break the American stick and then start slamming all over the place. And the Americans will finally feel it on their own skin. What it means, like when I went back to Serbia when the bombing started, what it means to be bombed day and night, every bridge, every factory, every facility for purifying water, every electricity production facility bombed, destroyed, in the name of love, because Clinton said he was doing it because they love Serbia and the Serbs. So tomorrow, when the Chinese or Russians or whoever it might be starts doing these things to France, to Germany, to America, to Australia, New Zealand, remember, it will be done because they love you. So we must do something. We must stop being passive and just whining and crying and hoping. Actions are what counts. So this is something that I just wanted to say and to remind people. We have to have people in our schools, people in public life who will raise their voices. Just think of doing whatever Antifa is doing, just for the right cause. They are not afraid to scream and to get involved and to oppose and to interrupt and to demand. And we just shut up and give in. We have to do this. I remember American government had all of these Muslims and Catholics and everybody who was opposing Russia and Serbia, because we are Slavic and Orthodox Christian. They were bringing these people to train them. They brought lots of young women and old women, grandmas, to interrupt public gatherings, to train them how to change the course of conversation. And they were very effective. And I remember one of the trainers, it was at the State Department, all of these people were gathered. I was there to interpret it in that case. And I was waiting to hear in my earphones what this speaker was going to do, or say rather, so that I can interpret it for those who were listening in their earphones, from my interpretation. And I almost went deaf. Sorry, sometimes I still mix up words in English, because this woman just started screaming like a maniac. And we were horrified. I took out the earphones and I was like, what is going on here? Well, she did it on purpose. She said, if they don't listen to you, if they ignore you, this is how you change the course of conversation. This is how you get noticed. Remember the demonstrations when AIDS crisis started, and it was a real thing. I'm not opposing it or saying anything negative about it, because they said silence equals death. This is what we have to understand. Our silence equals death. And in this case, it might be literal death, not just, social and political death. It will be literal death, and the end of our kids and families and civilization, because these other people, the other side, is rolling. They're going full force. They have shown their face. This is the good thing in today's world. They have taken off all masks. They're telling us some people can be called subhuman animals. And that's okay. Nobody protests. You can bomb hospitals. You can bomb a whole neighborhood and just say, well, they all deserve to die. And nobody reacts. Well, tomorrow it might be just the other way around. And can we protest then if we didn't protest now? When it happens to us, to our neighborhoods, just remember as you're dying, well, I was silent. And silence is death.
Coming off of that, I'd like to kind of put an exemplary spin on it, because I think what you're talking about is primarily the rubber meeting the road principle, where we have to teach the future generations, and we have to model. This is not something that we can pantomime our way through this, right? This is not something where we're able to just sort of fake it until we make it. There has to be an actual movement of the citizen grassroots level, the we the people in all of these societies where we have illegitimate governments, illegitimate representation, the infiltration of a bloodthirsty military war machine that has done nothing but profiteer at the expense of human life, and certainly the expense of hundreds of millions of children as well over the last multi-hundred-year period. I think we could trace that all of the way back really to the British Empire. So looking at this process going forward, one of the things that you and I had discussed off air, previously prior to coming on, is how we achieve this idea of a sort of a bloodless revolution, right? We're seeing bloodshed right now at the hands of the current levers of power, the current matrix of control all around the world. I think the main focus, or one of the main focuses of the We the People movement everywhere across all nation state boundaries, is how do we mitigate that to the greatest extent possible, but still recapture the institutions, the levers of power, the community, and positions that pull the strings, if you will, that would prevent these types of things from coming to power in those localities ever again. In the United States of America, for example, one of the things that we are sort of relearning as a civilization and attempting to move into action towards is this separation of states' rights versus federal rights, the consolidation of a centralized government over a decentralized, area. And according to the U.S. Constitution in its most plain text interpretation sense, the territories, the states of the United States of America should operate themselves as essentially tantamount to tiny little independent countries of their own, in agreement with a union of countries that forms the larger bloc. So how do we get there? How do we get involved at, say the local level in Serbia or the local level in Germany or Italy? How do we get involved in academia? What are the steps we can take? Especially for those of us that may already have exposure to these fields, where we can help pour some gas on this fire that is the Great Awakening.
Yes, excellent. Two words are key. One we already mentioned. I mentioned it, not specifically concentrating on it, but you brought it into focus. You mentioned responsibility, to accept and take responsibility for our lives. And the other one is power. Again, you mentioned it a few times in this while you were presenting this question. And if power weren't, and I'm talking about its brutal material sense, where I say, do this, and you must do it because I'm ordering you. If it weren't important, they wouldn't run for president. They wouldn't care to be in the Congress in the US, for example. They wouldn't care to establish everything in a legal way so that they would have the backing of the legal system to make us do all of these things and to suffer the consequences of not following those orders. So we have to realize we have the responsibility to control our lives. We cannot whine. There is no right even to whine. Slaves have no right to cry or to whine. It irritates the master. You have to suffer in silence and with a happy face, because that's what I want to see as your master, that you're my happy slave and you're happy to even die for me if I desire so. So we have to realize that brutality of the world, of human relations. So we must accept responsibility unto death, basically. Like Søren Kierkegaard, Danish philosopher, he said, I think in English it's melody unto death. Very great book, very difficult, but extremely important in philosophy, in existentialism, as an early existentialist. But we have to write a book with our deeds, basically, responsibility unto death. Even if we die, we have to accept that responsibility and actually exercise it. And the only exercise that will change anything is not whining and complaining and describing and crying about our miserable lives and all of that stuff, but actually doing something. And this is the word, this is where the word power comes into play. We have to take the instruments and the technology of power into our own hands and then order the world differently. As the main, most popular movement or branch of philosophy in this new world order is constructivism, basically. We have to construct, use their own weapons against them. If they can construct this, woke, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, transgender, all sorts of things that are detrimental to a human civilization, whoever you are, it doesn't matter if you're of this race or that religion, it doesn't matter, it's bad for everyone because it destroys a society, it destroys communication. We have to realize that if they can do it, if they can construct it, we can reconstruct or create a new world. Take the good from the old, take the good stuff from Black Lives Matter. Of course that they do. It is essentially necessary to understand that the kernel of truth, the essence of that message is very truthful. But then to stop manipulating it and to turn it into, incorporate it into the other message that is wider, that's human, that's global, that's eternal, and to say our lives matter, our real daily lives matter, and our freedom, and our life is worthless without freedom and without liberty to think and to behave as we desire and wish, as long as we don't bother others. To go back to the American roots, to these things that everybody loved, that led the world, the free thinking individuals all over the world, regardless of the continent, over the last couple of centuries, since America became the leading philosophical power, even though many people deny that truth, that America had the greatest philosophy of all, the philosophy of liberty, of freedom, of human fulfillment in material life, in this world, now, here, and that it involved not only gathering and amassing goods and wealth and, you know, using all of that stuff for material pleasure or carnal satisfaction, but real beautiful things of the mind, of the heart, and everything else. America had the greatest philosophy in this world, which was taken over because they reconstructed that world and created this mess. So we have to do it by taking power, getting into the halls of government, becoming presidents, becoming prime ministers, becoming governors, becoming congresspeople, becoming whatever. Though becoming those who will rule. That's the only way. I've been doing this for the last 10 years intensively in Serbia, trying to teach people, to convince them that, first of all, crying and whining is not worth anything. It's meaningless. It doesn't move anybody on the other side. And for us, it's detrimental. It just basically makes us more miserable. And that we have to do something, and we can do it only if we are organized, if we are people who can cooperate, if we are brave, if we love other people and love life, if eros, not in terms of pornography and stuff, but in terms of desire and will to live and to continue life on this planet, human life, and not thanatos in the Greek sense of death, that this depression, misery, unwillingness to do anything, you know, like lethargy. That's the thanatos that's so prevalent in that's why the epidemic of, what is it called, opioid and drugs and alcoholism and all of these things, because people are seeing their lives as useless and they escape into these things. So we have to be the ones who will command. But we need also competent people, people who know how to do these things. You will not go to a witch doctor. Maybe if you're totally desperate, nothing else works. But normal people will go to a good, reputable doctor. We all search, you know, what is the opinion of this doctor, or a good restaurant. You don't want to go to a crappy place and pay $50 for dinner that was half cooked or tasteless and disgusting. So we have to search for these people and force them to start active public political life. But also we have to choose people who are able to cooperate, to work productively with others. Because if we have 100 million competent, educated, good people, but they cannot cooperate with anybody, it's just as bad as having the other side in charge. So this is the problem in Serbia, for example, because I think the people have been, especially the young people, have been eager to do something to change, because they see that they are now the fourth generation since communists took over and since Americans took over in 2000. So since 1945 or 1941, when the war started in Yugoslavia, in Serbia, so it's almost 100 years. This is the fourth generation living in misery. Nothing changed. They keep getting $200 per month as salary. What can you do? How can you better your life? This is like medieval serfdom. And they're eager to do something, because now with the media, with the internet, with the phones, they can see that other things are available and possible. Why are we in Serbia destined and condemned to live off our grandmother's pension that she earned in communism? And that's like $200 per month for a whole family. That's misery. That's worse than slavery. So we have to do this. And I think I have moved lots of people there through my activity online, writing and everything. But we need that higher level, because even if the whole population wants it, we need those who will lead, because it doesn't work any other way. And in Serbia, we have lots of competent people, lots of educated people, lots of people who have experience in different fields, you know, in terms of government and everything else. But we are lacking brave people. We have those who are today Serbian intelligentsia or Serbian elite. They're just a bunch of eunuchs. They're a bunch of castrated, miserable, helpless, lifeless brains that serve no purpose whatsoever. That's our problem. And the very few who are actually brave and competent, they are so vain. They will not do anything with anybody else. They're lone wolves. They're loose cannons. Each one of them wants to be president or the leader or number one. Everybody else has to obey him or her. And they never stop to think how they're actually more evil than the other side that they claim is responsible for our misery, and they claim it rightly. So we everywhere have to somehow get out of our societies that group of people, that the most amazing people in world history, the founding fathers of the United States. Okay, they had privileges, they had slaves, they were rich, they were men, all of that stuff. Yeah, fine. We accept the charges from the other side, that they were slave owners and misogynists and all of that. Okay, but still, they created a country, a society, a civilization, a culture that actually established foundations for what led to finally have even Black Lives Matter and Antifa come out and express their own ideas. That is the amazing thing in world history. People forget, because some people hate America so much for obvious reasons, for death and destruction and everything. But that's not America as a concept. This is American government, the ruling class, and all that stuff. But we have these people who gave us something most valuable in our history, because we have other examples: Alexander the Great, Chinese civilization, whatever, you know. Like, let's not even go into a list, making a list of this. But nobody made a society, a culture, a legal system such as the United States did, these founding fathers and those who came after them, with all the problems that were the normal things for their age. It was the age of slavery. They were not the only ones who had slaves. The rest of the world had slaves as well. It was not uniquely American and all of that stuff. And America actually worked very hard to stop it. Look at Libya today, with democracy and American liberation from the crazy dictator. You can buy slaves today, and they're considered worthy of relationship with the United States and Western Europe. And they're selling slaves for 100 euros per person, and mostly blacks from Central Africa, from south of the Arab countries. So let's not talk about these things. Go for the principles. So we have to understand that we now, unfortunately, through blood and tears and destruction, have a unique opportunity in world history where we can actually do change things globally, not only in one little spot. America was nothing in those days. America, until World War I, was nothing. America lost a war against Chile in those days. If you read, now I cannot remember the name of the book, but Oscar Wilde's book about the ghost of, now I couldn't save my own life if I had to name it. But Oscar Wilde makes fun of that when the daughter of the American ambassador to Great Britain meets the ghost of the castle where they moved in, and has a really nice conversation. It's a wonderful book. And he says something to the effect, yeah, you're such a power, you lost war against Chile, you know, like your navy is a ruin, you know, because she says Europe is so fascinating, because you have culture and ruins, like history. And the ghost said, I would never go to America to visit you because you don't have ruins. You have no manners, and you have no ruins except for the Navy that lost. It was very witty the way Oscar Wilde did it, and not me. Don't forget everything I said. Read the book. But even 100 years ago, America was not a power, and yet those ideas led the rest of the world and made America what it was. And now we are witnessing, I as an American, just like I as a Serb in Serbia, I am witnessing the suicide of America by Americans, and I'm witnessing the suicide of Serbia by Serbs because of these incompetent, vain, horrible people who cannot cooperate. Remember, Charles Darwin, the father of social Darwinism, is, well, they claim that he was not like that at all. He actually wrote something very, very good. He said that only coherent people who can cooperate, can achieve something. Individualism is good in art, in philosophy, and stuff like that, but in social issues, settings, only cooperation of a mass of individuals creating one big corporate mind and body that will move mountains. Only then we can achieve something. They never quote that from him. Also, what's his name? The god of neoliberals and neoconservatives. Now my brain is dead. I don't know why, but who wrote The Wealth of Nations? They always quote this invisible hand of the market. He mentioned it only once, but they never quote the other part where he says, I taught ethics for 20 years, and only then I switched to political economy. And he said, those people who are entrepreneurs, capitalists, especially big ones, do not trust them anything, because they will always sacrifice the common good for their own pocket. Do not trust politicians, always control them, because they will, for winning one election for 4 years or 2 years in the case of the US Congress, they will sacrifice a whole nation, like they did in Serbia or in Ukraine, sending 1 million young men to their deaths, knowing that it's going to happen. But it won elections because they brainwash people so well. So we have to, again, to go back to the central point, we have to take responsibility and win the power and rule and accept the responsibility for our actions and for the results to, create and recreate or construct or reconstruct, whatever you want to do it, but to make a society that will be good for human existence, not only living, but to live like human beings should, with dignity, with creativity, with confidence in other humans, that they will help us, that it's worth working together, that it's worth and beautiful that we wake up in the morning happy that we are part of this society in our country, in the United States or Serbia in my case, or globally, that we rejoice that in China something happened because it's good for us too. That we do not wake up thinking, oh, we hope that all Russians die because, then it's going to be good for us. Because then you can bet that there are people in Russia who are thinking the same thing. Those damn Americans should all be wiped out from the face of this earth because they're the plague to this world.
You have just described so very much. I've actually been taking a couple of notes, to be perfectly honest. Excuse me. And if I can encapsulate in sort of Reader's Digest what you have just said, you've described taking the attitude that it is necessary to be proud of who we are, but to be selfless enough that we can achieve some measure of altruism in the public space, some measure of giving back and putting our personal gainsmanship, if you will, aside to exist in a servant role. And then also to remember who we are as mankind, not just as it pertains to each other, not just as it pertains to one another at the nation state level, but to remember that we're all the same children of the Most High, and that primarily, in many regards, we share the same basic core belief systems, right? The same basic ideas that govern our society: self-determination, the right to have a relationship with one's deity in one's own manner, the right to say what one wishes to say without fear of retribution, and the right to coexist with one another in a sovereign way, doing no harm, but always protecting the individual's right to refuse or disconsent or dissent, right, from the issue at hand. Um, so we're coming up on an hour here, and it's been a fantastic discussion so far. I want to be respectful of your time, but I guess I want to leave with a question about man's spiritual understanding growing in this time. We're sort of experiencing, and I think you would agree with this, if we were to take a 100,000-foot point of view, we're witnessing a maturation, a maturing of mankind in a very significant way, where personal responsibility and accountability, not only for our own personal families and our own community levers of power, but also taking hold of our spiritual nature, realizing that we are created beings, realizing that we have a great blessing here in this world, to be able to cooperate with one another, that it actually is far more beneficial and fun and exuberant to do so. And that at the end of the day, we are very powerful beings who, if you go back to the book of old, we were given this world as regents, right? To share with one another and to
So,
improve and to rule over. So, how does that process factor in? Why is that basic moral sort of point of absolution, right? There is a moral standard, and why is that such a very important issue as we move into an era, as we seek to change what we're going through now and move into an era that exemplifies what it means to be cooperative, spiritual, and quite frankly, thoroughly and completely human.
yeah, you mentioned the key word, morality, morals, and I'm not talking about that the most vulgar of understandings of morality and morals, the sexual thing, where the lack of sex means that I'm a moral person. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these real morals where the lack of concern for others and respect for the past and worrying about the future, even if I don't have kids myself, for example, but I still worry about the future kids of others because they are me. They're an extension of humanity in me, transferred and multiplied in other kids. Because in 100 years, if I don't have kids, well, who cares? Then I can grab whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. I can abuse kids. I can steal people's money. I can do whatever, all of these truly immoral and evil things and criminal things. And that is what they've been doing very hard, including the sexual thing as well in this case, because it leads you down that path. If you do not have a loving relationship, which includes sexual activities, because that's how we propagate and that's how we enjoy life. And we know that we are alive. I'm not talking about, like an orgy for everybody, but it is an essential truth of our existence, of every creature's existence. But they use that to lead you because, that's one of the weakening spots or weak spots in us that will cause us to steal and to cheat and to do horrible things, because we know that, with money, you can then get some sex, even if they wouldn't even look at you. Uh, uh, if you didn't have any money, because this sense of not grabbing, not accumulating, not taking from others, not doing it only for this moment, even though we have to understand that life is now. This conversation is the most valuable thing right now in our life, because it's happening right now when we're alive. The 1 hour ago, it doesn't matter because it was in the past. We might remember, we might not. We remember memorable things, that's why they're called memorable, and we don't remember many other things in our life that we had to do. We had to go to the restroom, we had to take a shower, we had to brush our teeth. Well, nobody really writes a story about how he got up in the morning and brushed his teeth, and went to work. It's not worth our time. But it happened. At that moment, it was the most important thing in our life. And every moment is. So we have to live in the now. That's essential to understand. But we live forever, because as human beings, we are connected to everybody else. And our actions cause are the result of others that cause us and our situation, and our actually a good life, dignified life, love filled with life filled with love, or to be a subhuman animal who will be torn into pieces by a bomb by an evil government that just doesn't know what, or they do know, who knows, but they're doing evil things in front of the whole world, sending us a message that there is no morality anymore, that we can do whatever we want. We just have to declare somebody subhuman. And we already had that from 1932, and until 1945. And we said never again. And look, it's happening. It happened in Serbia. It happened in Iraq. It happened in Libya. It happened in Afghanistan. Who knows if very soon it's going to happen in New York, or in Oklahoma, or in Paris. And this is morality, to actually stand up, like the government of Colombia, for example, or Bolivia, and many others, who are saying, okay, no more. And we have to take that responsibility, and we have to act in this world right now, right here, to make sure that tomorrow's right now and right here will be available to us. Because tomorrow, if a bomb falls on my house and kills me, there is no here and now anymore. It's gone. And we have to understand that morality means societal. You can, if you live on an island like Robinson Crusoe, well, it doesn't matter really. You're one person, but we do not live like that. And we have to understand that morality is actually group, national, international morality. Only then it has a meaning. It has a purpose. It has some significance in terms of whether we will be moral human beings or not. And again, to go back, accept responsibility and act. Get the power and use the power, because that is why it's called power, because you can do things with it.
And to sort of piggyback off of that, this has been a very powerful conversation. For the audience out there, I hope that they've appreciated the dimensions here and the different layers that this has covered today, because in the essence, this is a spiritual war. This is a reclamation of mankind's personal power, mankind's personal confidence, mankind's ability to think and reason and critically analyze things for themselves. When we look at the level of MK Ultra gaslighting, mind control programming that has been heaped onto nearly all of the Western world and most of the what we would consider second and third world nations out there, it's truly astonishing that conversations like this at this point in time are even possible to occur. And Mr. Sima, I'm very grateful that you've come back and shared your time with us today. For the audience out there, I've hoped that this has been an incredibly beneficial discussion for you. I'll be back with each of you again soon, very soon on the Q News Patriot. This is SG Anon. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.